Hi, I'm Bob Dixon. Welcome to the Eagle Insight Podcast, your go-to source for bold and actionable leadership insights. With more than 30 years as a military officer and a strategist, I know leadership is about real impact. In this series, I sit down with top industry leaders to uncover their challenges and their success secrets. Ready to elevate your leadership? Well, hit subscribe. And if you'd like to be a guest, visit 5eaglesleadership.com/interview. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to the Eagle Insight Podcast, where we help leaders in every industry, everywhere, be just a little more awesome. And today is part 2 of my conversation with Kara, you're my fractional CMO, you're my confidant, you're my, in many ways, a mentor and a friend. But Kara has collected from our audience feedback and questions that we thought it would be much easier to respond to in this way on air, as opposed to trying to write everybody back. Kara, thanks so much for everything that you do for 5 Eagles Leadership, and thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah, I'm so excited we're back with more questions. We get so many great questions from people. I want to mention here too, we do have a monthly leadership workshop. So look where this is posted and join us in the leadership workshop. It's a great opportunity to get to actually ask Bob some questions as well. But today we have a lot of questions about visionary leadership in times of change. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of change happening in the world at a very fast pace. And so, people are really focused on wanting to be a visionary leader. We're hearing that a lot, that they feel like they have to be the visionary and lead through these times of change. So want to talk about that a little bit with you, get some information from you, and ask some of the questions. So first of all, can you talk about visionary leadership a little bit and what that means?
Sure. I think there's a lot of pressure for people to think of themselves as visionary. And so what do we mean by visionaries? Like, we have this idea about a future state, and that we have a path forward to creating that future state. The weird part is that most people who can come up with a really good idea about what the future should look like for your organization are not actually the same people who are good at making the plan to get you there. So there is Gino Wickman writes about having a visionary and having an integrator. And that visionary has the big picture and sees the future and sees a kind of general direction and how to get to the future. And when I say general direction, it's sort of north. But then you got to have somebody in your life that's going to say, okay, I get that you want to go sort of north, and I see what you want to create there, but there's the laws of physics still apply. We have to move from one place to another. We have to go not just northerly, but we have to go at 189 degrees azimuth or 0 degree azimuth to get to where we're going, and have some specifics. So there is a difference, I think, between visionary leadership and organizational leadership. They can be combined in the same people, and sometimes that's very, very true. There are some titans of industry that are like that. But for most people in most organizations, you either are the person that has a great vision, or you're the person that knows how to get us there. And recognizing that about yourself is really, really important.
That's what I was thinking when you were saying that. And that's why this is a good topic to talk about, because people put a lot of pressure on themselves to be both. How can I be visionary? How can I be a leader? So it sounds like, from your definition, that that's an area of opportunity for people to look at and think about, is, can they be both? Should they be both? Or is that an opportunity to add to the organization, if you're the visionary, to have more leadership underneath you?
I think if you want to be both just because you want to be both, you may struggle mightily. And the thing that makes most visionaries really, really great is that they're not bogged down in the details that an integrator would need. If you're the person who's planning the nitnoid details to get you someplace, you're probably so bogged down in the details that you don't see the bigger picture as clearly as somebody who's only doing that. Now, there are a small fraction of people that can do both, but they're rare. So if you're willing to take that criticism and say, okay, I'm really good at one of these, but not both, how powerful is that? Because now you can partner with somebody who has the skills that you don't have. And I'll give you an example. I thought I was a visionary. I have these great big ideas. I love to think about what is the big future of my organization, of 5 Eagles Leadership. And what I found when I started working with real visionary people in the small business world and in the innovation community was, oh boy, I am not the visionary that I thought I was. I have visionary tendencies, But as soon as a visionary and my business partner in other business says, hey, here's where I see us going, my brain doesn't go, oh, let me add on to that into a bigger picture. My brain goes, okay, we're going to have to set up these processes. We're going to have to get these people. We're going to have to move this structure around so that we make room for the. Oh, I'm not the visionary. I'm the guy that puts it together and gets you there. So I had to be a lot more self-aware, and it took me a minute to figure that out. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to be a visionary leader. If you're not wired for vision, that's fine. There's a lot of businesses that do really well without them. Doesn't mean you get to ignore how market changes, but it means that you don't have to put pressure on yourself to come up with the next moonshot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you were talking, is that, it's like it's okay to have a vision and to implement it in a business. And it doesn't mean that you are always visionary about things. And
Right.
I feel like that can change at different times in life for people too, as
Oh yeah.
they mature, as they learn different things, their ability to develop a deeper, further vision starts to get enhanced.
Yep.
So one of the other questions that came in around this is, so how do you have a clear vision while you're adapting to changes that are happening?
Yeah, it's partially about the feedback that you get for your vision about how clear it is, because it may be crystal clear in your mind, but by the time you get it in front of other people, it seems muddled. So one of the things that makes it easier to communicate is to actually write your vision down. It's not enough to have it in your brain, because it seems perfect in there. But when you start to write it, you start to find there may be disconnects. There may be holes that somehow your brain filled in and you didn't notice that they were just filled in and there's no substance there. So that's the first thing, is being crystal clear about what your vision really is. And then when you have it, you're able to communicate that crystal clear to other people. Then you can get feedback on whether or not the market, the context is compatible with your vision. Is the marketplace going to look at your vision and see it favorably? I can't tell you how many small businesses in the innovation community have these really wonderful ideas, but there's just no product market fit. And they don't see it because in their brain, it's a perfect little vision. Of course, everybody wants to have a self-cleaning reptile cage. Why not? That's a true story. True story. And I'm talking to this, like, everybody who has a reptile wants this. I'm like, well, how many people have reptiles? Well, I'm like, well, in your market, how many people have reptiles? Well, oh, okay. Well, it's very, very small. I'm like, oh, how many of them are going to buy more than one of these things? Okay. So basically you sat around your kitchen coming up with a great vision and all your friends told you it was a good idea, but you don't have product market fit. Maybe we could go back to that vision stage and think of something else. That's the kind of feedback that you need. And it's going to be more complex, I know, than just, a simple product like that. But it's being able to put that out there and get battered by the market.
Yeah, it all comes back to feedback. I was thinking, we can link to another episode in here where we talked about leadership and personal growth, and we touched on some of these topics, but it all comes down to, what you shared on kind of perception. Product market fit is getting feedback out from the market, but you can get feedback and you can get information and self-awareness before that even happens. There's an opportunity to do that. And so I like what you said there, is basically say it out loud. Take your vision. Don't wait until you've already spent all this time, money, and energy,
Right.
and then share it out with people. Instead, take your vision and share that out in multiple ways regularly, I think, so that you can make sure that you continue to get feedback on it. Would you say that's true?
Well, absolutely. And I can't tell you how many founders and entrepreneurs suffer from an unwillingness to share their ideas because they're afraid it's so good that someone's going to steal it. And so they're like, well, I could tell you what I'm doing, but you got to sign an NDA first. And people who are familiar with the marketplace are just going to look at you and go, man, don't be afraid to tell people what you're doing. It's not like they're out there trying to steal your great idea and then go do all of the work that it takes to bring that to marketplace. They'll steal it way later when you've got it fully developed, but they're not going to take your idea and run with it in that way. And if you're moving in those circles that people will do that, then find a different circle to move it.
Yeah, exactly. That reminds me of, you talk about ego often, right? And how don't let that be what you lead with. So how can people be aware for themselves when they're getting into that space? I don't want anybody to see this. I don't want anyone to know it. How can you be aware of yourself that it's your ego that's maybe affecting your implementation of vision?
Yeah. Again, there's a feedback loop there, right? If you have a trusted advisor, when you say, well, I'm not going to tell so-and-so, I'm not going to tell this venture capitalist my idea because he might steal it. Like, well, he's not going to invest in you if you don't tell him. Right. So but having that feedback loop is incredibly valuable. But there's another. You can do this through introspection too. You don't need somebody else to tell you that you're being hard headed about how good you think your idea is. Right. You can realize when you're moving with ego by sitting down and going, why wouldn't somebody want to talk to me? Why wouldn't they? Well, maybe they think they're so important. I don't know what you come up with as an answer for that, but I would say that if you're asking yourself those kinds of questions and you start to realize it's me, what am I doing that makes them not want to listen to my story or listen to my product? Oh, I'm coming across as a jackass. So ask yourself if you're being a jackass. That's a pretty good question to ask.
I think that is pretty good advice too. I mean, I was thinking this is where technology can come in handy too, is you could use AI, to ask some questions about some information you've come up with or help you kind of see where you might have some gaps or where you might not be receiving people if you don't have people around you to, that trusted advisor role. That's an area where technology could come in. Have you used it in that way, or what are your thoughts on technology to give you self-awareness?
I think it can be incredibly useful. And there's some models out there right now that are specifically designed to help people become more self-aware. And you got to be careful with AI. You can put stuff out there that is then publicly available. The AI can be using it to train its model, and that means that your personal information could be out there. But it can also, some of them are really, really good at giving you feedback. And so you can ask it questions if you program it correctly, right? But learning prompting is a skill. So if you prompt it in the right way to act as a coach and say, give me feedback on this. And oh, by the way, then you can upload your idea. Right? It'll read a PDF, it'll read a document, and you can say, give me feedback on this. And then you can ask it specific questions about how do you think the market's going to receive this? And depending on the model, it may give you some really great feedback, or it may give you kind of superficial feedback. Well, I'm not really opposed to do that. But the ones that give you great feedback go, hey, have you thought about this?
Yeah, that's when you get those sparks. And I mean, you bring up the idea of discernment to me, and I think it's relevant to feedback from humans, feedbacks from, automated intelligence, wherever it comes from, is the idea of discernment is, that you have to be able to receive that feedback. Can you talk a little bit about that process again on, how do you receive feedback? And
I love that model, right? You want to receive a feedback as a gift. So you receive it with grace. And then you want to be able to process it, not just out of fear or of being offended, but you want to process that. You want to reflect with courage. And that means you want to own that feedback as if it's true. What am I doing to give Kara that impression? What am I doing for her to believe that about me? And then I want to respond with purpose. I want to say, hey, Kara, thank you for that feedback. I thought about it and I believe I'm doing a couple of things that led you to believe this. Here's what I'm going to do differently going forward.
Yeah. So with that, for a leader, whether you're the visionary or, you're both roles or you're one role, as a leader, you are carrying out the vision, of an initiative. And so, how do you help people stay focused on that vision and not get caught in the day to day? Like, do you recommend that they, meditate on the vision in the morning? There's so many ideas out there. What do you think is the most effective way to be vision driven?
So it's not just the visionary or the implementer or integrator that's focused on the vision. It should be not just every leader in the organization, it should be every person in the organization. And how does every person in the organization, if you go to most organizations, you ask them, what's the vision for this organization? And most people won't be able to tell you. Maybe the top level leaders will, but some of them have to look it up. If you're doing this right, leader, everybody in your organization knows what the vision is and they know where they're going because you told them over and over and over again. You said it so many times, you're sick of saying it. You're saying it so many times that you're just like, everybody's like, oh, here he goes again. He's going to tell us that we're going to go to the moon. When you start hearing grumbling because they've heard it too many times, but they're focused on it, you're winning. You're winning. Oh, by the way, the same thing goes for your values. In fact, I would say your values are even more important than your vision. And you should be talking about them over and over and over again until people are tired of them. And when people start using those values for making their decisions and they start using them for their hiring, their firing, their promoting, their rewarding, use your values in that way because everybody owns them. They love them. They've heard them so many times. It's part of the fabric. Then they will achieve your vision because you've told them all about that as well.
Okay, so you brought an important part in here is that the values are an important part of the vision as a leader. So
they've got to be compatible, right? I can't have a vision of the future that's not compatible with my values.
Right, because you're not going to achieve that. So how do people get clear on what their values are?
Oh, you got to start with that. right? A lot of people start with the vision part, and I'm like, no, who are you? Vision's where you're going. That can change because the market's going to change. The world is going to change. Like, you don't know what's going to show up, whether it's a pandemic or a bunch of tariffs that we don't understand. Those things can all change, but who you are is about your values. So being crystal clear about that. And there's a bunch of different exercises that you can go through that help you articulate those values. But look, it comes down to this. How do we actually treat each other? How do we actually address our business? How do we address our customers and our partners and our vendors and our stakeholders? That's what it comes down to. And it's not just these fancy words on a poster in the break room. And I love to see them posted in the break room where people can see them, but it doesn't mean anything when it's there. So, a great company, what do they say? Integrity, communication, teamwork, and success, I think, were the four values of Enron, right? Before they imploded, right? So just putting them on the wall doesn't do anything. You got to live them. And if they're not present before you make your vision, then you got a problem.
Yeah. And I think, it's important, like you said, hiring, firing in every area of the company, it has to be lived. I have a story myself that I can share. I used to work with someone in the past, and I loved the mission that we were working towards. And I was very invested in it. And when we worked on the values and started to get some clarity on that as the company grew, it became really apparent that we weren't a values match. The other person was more focused on their legacy, notoriety, fame, even some of those words come up. And it was rather shocking to me at the time because that was nothing that I was about. And it was really clarifying to see that we were on different pages about that. And for me, it was clarifying that this wasn't a way that I wanted to move forward in supporting a business in their growth. And so I agree with you. It's so important to find it up front. And when you don't, what would you say how would they know if they have a values misalignment, I guess would be a good question to
I
ask.
think you're going to feel it right away. You're going to feel it. There's kind of two conditions, I think, that happen. One is you join a company that has espoused values like Enron. Like, who doesn't want to be in a place that says integrity, communication, and teamwork are important to us? But those are just espoused values. They're not the ones you live and you feel it. Because you could erase all that and just say profit at any cost. That's our only value. And that's okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That's not judgmental. I just don't want to live in an organization. I don't want to work in an organization. I don't put my energy into something that is willing to cutthroat each other for profit. That's not compatible with my personal values. So you're going to feel that when they go, okay, they said teamwork, but that guy stabbed the other guy in the back and he got promoted. You feel it. The second is when you're hiring onto a place or you're joining an organization and they're explicit about their values. We care about you working 90-hour weeks. We don't care about your work-life balance. That's not a thing here. We are absolutely dedicated to accomplishing a mission, right? And if you look at SpaceX or you look at Tesla in certain time periods, you will see that they were incredibly driven people who were willing to sacrifice their personal lives to accomplish something remarkable. That's okay. If you're making the choice to do that, you have to know that you're signing up for that and you have to be willing to do that. And your personal values are like, hey, look, I don't care about work-life balance. I care about going to Mars. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Just know that that's what you're getting into. Not compatible with my personal values. I happen to like my family. I got great kids. I have a wonderful wife. I want to spend time with them. So I'm not gonna not that Elon's calling and asking me to join him, but I wouldn't because I don't want to live like that. And so knowing what your personal values are is incredibly important as a leader, as a follower, to know you are in a place that's compatible with who you are.
Yeah, I love a mentor once told me this phrase and it stuck with me so much. It's not monkey say, monkey do, it's monkey see, monkey do.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was such a good one, right? It's like you can say
That is
whatever
good.
you want,
Right.
but it's what they see. So I think the concept that I'm really hearing shine through here, which I think, is relates to some of the questions that people ask is that consent, is that approval, it's that shared belief in the vision is a big part of how to carry out a vision. Is you have to have those values and you have to be clear. What could people do that are listening to get clear on what their own values are, maybe outside of the role they're in or whether they own the business or not? What are some things that they could do to re-clarify their values? Because I think values can change over time.
Sure, absolutely. What was important to you at age 15 is probably not as important to you right now. And I'm not
We
putting a
hope
number
not.
on that, right? These do change over time. There should be some fundamentals maybe that don't change. I think we always value things like integrity, but I think being crystal clear about what those are, and there's exercises that you can go through that'll help you articulate those. But it can't just be a word. When you say integrity, for example, what does it really mean? Does that mean you never lie ever? Because I'm willing to bet that everybody listening to this has at some point clicked on a website that says, I've read and understand all of the terms and conditions, and you didn't. Okay. So we are going to, and the other litmus test about integrity is if you were in Poland in 1939 and you had refugees in your basement and somebody came looking for them, would you lie about whether or not they were there? Oh, it's okay to lie. Okay, so it's not integrity. Just defining what they actually mean to you and what the red lines are for your values. That's incredibly important. But going through that exercise, and sometimes you need help with that.
Yeah.
And our coaches are great at pulling out those values and letting people articulate what they are, but then pushing on them. Let's have that conversation just like I did about integrity. What does
Yeah.
it really mean?
And I agree, a guide is helpful in those situations. I was thinking, we can put out a link if anybody's feeling like this resonates with them and they're feeling, unsure for themselves, or, it is a lot of time of change and they want to have some support in just investigating that for themselves. We'll put a link, they can schedule a strategy call
Oh yeah,
and,
absolutely. Yeah.
explore a little bit more because I agree it's something that's helpful. And, back to the idea of change. So, when do you know that it's time to reevaluate your situation, your vision, your values, any of those things in the face of change? When do you know when it's time to say, let me step back and reassess things, or stick with the vision and keep moving forward?
Yeah. So there's two times I think. One of them's an easy answer. Put it on the darn calendar. It's something that I do annually. We sit down and go, okay, these were my goals. And it's actually not tied to the calendar year because I started this in a September. So in the fall, I sit down with my wife and we say, okay, here's where we're at. Here's what we said we wanted to do by this time this year and where are we going next year. And we sit down and write down our goals and our vision for our future. And by the way, life changes and it sneaks up on you because suddenly you look around and all your kids are out of college and you're an empty nester. Like, how did that sneak up on me? So put it on a calendar. Do it periodically. The second time when you do it, which is out of cycle for that, is when you're feeling really uncomfortable about something that's happening in your world. That maybe something has changed, not on schedule, and these things happen. So if you are feeling uncomfortable with where you're at, that could mean that you are in a situation that's adverse to your values, and you need to make a change about that. Or maybe you're going through a period of growth. Okay, let's spend some time digging through that right there. Because sometimes those adverse things that happen to our life that makes us uncomfortable is exactly what we need to be better, to go through a growth stage that's going to help us come out the backside as a stronger, more resilient person. But you got to take time to reflect on that.
Yeah, I think that's good insight. I've heard you talk about, about how to kind of get that feedback and assess for yourself. So it sounds like first step is to assess if there's an adjustment within yourself to make before you take it to kind of changing the situation or the environment. Am
Yeah,
I
not
getting
sure
that
I'd
right?
rush into changing. I feel uncomfortable at work today, so I'm going to quit my job and I don't have another job. Some people are in that position that they can do that. And I know it's very faddish to do that with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They're like, I'm not going to stick around any longer. Um, I don't advise that. I mean, there are economic questions that go along with making major changes in that, but it's also untenable to be in an environment that is consistently stealing your energy. And usually it has to do with a mismatch in values. Usually. And if you're going to be objective about it and you can look around and go, you know what? This isn't what I signed up for. You got three choices, by the way, when that happens. Right? When you find yourself uncomfortable situation, you can try to fix it. You can leave it, or you can learn to live with it. I can't come up with a fourth one. Those are the three that I came up with. And any listeners out there comes up with a fourth option for that, I'm happy to hear about it. But those are the three things when you're uncomfortable. It's typically around a huge difference in vision, but mostly it's about difference in values. And when that happens, you can fix it, you can leave it, or you can learn to live with it. Learning to live with it's the hardest thing. And people will do it for years and they'll be miserable. And I don't think anybody should go throughout life like that. And if you need help sorting through that, give us a call. I'd be happy to talk you through it.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we'll put a link for people. They can book in a call. And I hear that misalignment. Like, what does that look like for people? What are some things that they might see? I have some ideas in my mind, but I'm curious from you. What are some ways that they might start to see that happening in their life and be a clue that it's time to do an investigation here on where I'm at with values.
Yeah, if you ever see something happen in your organization that you think is wrong and you sit back and you're waiting to see how the organization responds, there's a great moment happening right now. Are they covering it up? Are they letting it go? Are they ignoring it? Are they addressing it? How are they addressing it? Are they blaming some external factor, or are they owning up to mistakes? Are they holding people accountable to the values? Holding people accountable to standards is really important in business, but more so holding people accountable to values. So when you see your organization, the leaders in your organization who are not holding people accountable to values or are themselves violating values, and you see that the institution itself is not willing to address that, that's probably a first indicator that you're not in the right place. Now, again, you could try to fix it. So what does that look like? Okay, well, I see that this person at one level up from me is the person who's making the values violation and everybody knows about it. Can I have a conversation 2 levels up? Can I go talk to a senior leader in the organization and say, hey, listen, I noticed, everybody knows that this is happening. Are you guys not aware of that, or do you not want to address it? Now, it's a bold thing to do, but that's how you try to fix things. Oh, by the way, if you do that and they go, no, go back to work, you know what you need to do next. You're either going to learn to live with it or you're going to leave.
I have a military question for you. Thinking about the sergeant major role, who's kind of giving you that feedback. So when you're above the sergeant major role, what does that look like? If you see something happening that maybe you don't agree with, where there's a decision made, how do you handle that in those senior levels in the military?
Yeah, of course, there are formal processes where you can make complaints to inspector generals or to there are various programs for reporting adverse behavior, depending on what that behavior is, including criminal investigation stuff. But typically, it's one of those things where somebody's doing something unethical that may not have broken a law. And if I'm looking at if it's my sergeant major, I obviously own that corrective action. If it's the sergeant major at the level above me, ooh, that's tough because that's my boss's right hand. Now I could go directly to that sergeant major because I should have a relationship with them. And I say, Sergeant Major, here's what I noticed. Help me understand why that's okay. And I can have that one-on-one conversation. And if it gets corrected, great. But if it doesn't, then I have to go to my boss and tell him, hey, this is what your sergeant major is doing. Oh, by the way, if it's my boss that's the problem, I can talk to a sergeant major and say, do you realize the colonel is doing this or the general is doing this? Do you realize that? Are you advising him against that? And if that doesn't get us anywhere, then I have to go 2 levels up and go talk to his boss. Now, by the way, if I'm doing that, if I'm going 2 levels up and revealing something about my boss, I am now going to be labeled as disloyal, and it's going to be a problem.
It sounds like it's that feedback loop that we are often talking about is, how do you get feedback and how do you communicate with other people? And just taking that a step further, let's say it's not something that's unethical or a judgment call in that sense. Let's just say that somebody decided to do something. We're going to, in my mind, I'm thinking war. That's not the best thing. We're going to move forward and handle the problem this way. And you have concerns about that or you see issues with it. Would it be the same process or what does that look like? And how can we translate this into sort of the corporate environment? How do you have those hard conversations with other people? Maybe that's for another episode.
There's a whole episode on courage that we can talk about because that's what it takes at that point. You say, boss, I see what you're trying to do. I understand what you're trying to do. And I disagree for the following reasons. That takes incredible courage to say that, depending mostly on how they have reacted to feedback in the past. Because if my boss is somebody who's shot the messenger, I am very hesitant to come back and tell them that they're screwing up. I feel like I owe it to my troops and to my organization to tell them, even if he doesn't want to hear it. And I put myself on a limb like that a couple of times. And sometimes you take a face shot and sometimes they listen. But I feel like I owe it to my people to do that. So in that sense, I think I was courageous on a couple of occasions. But there are other times where you go, that's not worth it. It's going to fall on deaf ears. I'm not going to put a target up in front of myself and take a hit for it. It really depends on what are the consequences. If the consequences to the organization are greater than the consequences of me losing face, I have to step in.
You're going to say it. Yeah. And this comes into the values conversation that you're bringing up as, really you have to know your own values to be able to discuss those things with other people. So one of the big things I took from what you've shared today, and I want to reiterate, is not to operate in a vacuum. I think that's the best piece of advice that was, indirectly shared here is always be in feedback loops in all places. and with yourself as well,
Yeah.
and adjusting what your vision looks like and how you move forward with that. So any final advice you can give for people on this topic, and how to continue to not be in a vacuum, grow, and focus on the vision?
So there are two places that you need to get feedback from that we haven't really talked about, and it's the downstream feedback. Like, will your troops tell you when you're screwing up? The people that you're leading 2-3 levels down. I asked a senior leader once. I was working for a pretty toxic boss, and this was his boss. So I'm talking to the guy 2 levels up. I didn't go to him to turn in my boss, but it was just a orientation meeting. And I asked him, I said, how do you tell that the people working for you are toxic? And he said, well, it's really difficult because when you look, if you're the top monkey on a pile of monkeys and you look down, all you see are smiling monkey faces looking back up at you. But if you're the guy at the bottom and you look up, all you see are buttholes up there. So,
Oh, that's so good.
So he's like, it's hard to get feedback from all the smiling faces. And he goes, here's what you need to do. You need to make sure that you have trusted people throughout your organization that you can have lunch with that are going to tell you the truth. You've
That's
got
great
to
advice.
create those feedback loops. And that way you'll know that the people working for you are not necessarily treating the people or leading the people that they lead the way you think they are. And if you don't have that feedback loop, then you are going to be blindsided. The second group is your peers. If you're the top of an organization or it's lonely at the top, they say, then create a mastermind group or join a mastermind group. And if you are looking for one in the Tampa area, let me know. We've got something starting right now. Having your peers, and when I was a battalion commander, we've had an episode with Colonel retired Teresa Schlosser, who was one of my battle buddies. She commanded next door to me. She was a great friend and battle buddy during that time when we worked for a very difficult boss. And we were able to hold each other up. We were able to check on each other in terms of, hey, this looked wrong to me. Did it look wrong to you? And if so, what can we do about it? So if you're within an organization and you have a peer level, you have to create trust across that peer level. And too many peers are in competition with each other to a fault. Look, I did not mind beating them on the football field, right? In the intramural sports. I did not mind beating them at everything we could possibly beat them at. But when it came down to it, we were all about taking care of troops, and it didn't matter whose troops they were. So creating a peer network, either inside your organization or external to your organization, will give you a lot more feedback, particularly on your own decision making, which is going to be incredibly important.
Such great insights. And, the next topic that we're going to be talking about is, and we can link the episode to this, is building and leading high performing teams. So I think this is a great place to end the topic here on visionary leadership, and know that we're going to have another conversation about, how do you actually make this happen? How do you hear from the bottom up, as you said, what the actual feedback is. So thanks for answering all of these questions, Bob, and giving us some insights into how to move forward in a positive way.
Thank you so much, Kara. And I love the feedback we get from the audience. I love the comments and questions and the emails that we get. They're so encouraging. And, our mission to make leaders more awesome really comes down to whether or not people are listening, people are putting things into action. And if they need to discuss that or want to discuss that they're reaching out to us in a way that we can help them be their very best. And Kara, you're a huge part of that. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Bob. All right. What do you think? How did we do?